Okay. So Hare Krishna, everyone. So warm welcome today. This is day 13, and it's actually a milestone. So I will talk about that. So again, this is Gita Gyan, Essence of Bhagavad Gita, and we will be covering chapter 13. Dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Jai Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari. And this is our deities in Vrindavan in India. This is where Krishna spent his childhood. The place is still there. All the holy sites where Krishna spent all his childhood, where he stayed with his parents, all of this is still there, and it has easily about 5,000 temples in Vrindavan. And this is our ISKCON temple there, and the main deity there is Sri Sri Krishna Balaram, Krishna with his elder brother. Gita Mahatmya. Gita Dita Chayenapi Bhakti Bhavena Chetasa Veda Shastra Puranani Tena Ditani Sarvasaha. The study of the Vedas and Puranas, verily the study of all scriptures, is completed in all respects by one who studies the Gita with devotion. So I don't mind if I mute some of you. It is unmuted. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So recapping yesterday, chapter 12, the title was, oh sorry, this is not the correct title. The title was Bhakti Yoga. So this is not the one. I forgot to change this. So anyway, looking at it, which is better, jnana or bhakti? So Arjuna begins with this question. And Krishna answers very clearly that please follow the bhakti path because that is the ultimate and that is the easiest. But it requires you to have faith and it requires you not to be envious. And on top of that, it requires you to be a devotee, to someone who is having a positive idea about the Supreme Lord, not someone who is averse to the Supreme Lord. So, and then he gave reasons why bhakti is easier and why the jnana path is much more difficult. Then he went on to speak about the yoga, the bhakti yoga ladder. So he's saying that the ultimate in bhakti is to always remember Krishna and to never forget him. But if we cannot do this, then how can we attain this platform? So then Krishna recommends the bhakti yoga path. So the bhakti yoga path is basically the regulative actions, the 9 processes of bhakti. It begins by any yoga path will begin by surrendering unto a spiritual master and accepting initiation into the parampara. So it has to come through the parampara. So once we attain this, then we can receive the blessings and the benedictions of all the mantras which flow through the parampara, and then we can follow the regulative principles of bhakti. So after that, but if some people cannot do that, if some people are not ready for this kind of commitment, so then what to do? Then Krishna tells, okay, then you do work for me. So do seva for me in different ways. You know, if you cannot directly be involved in bhakti, then you can spend your money, you can serve the mission, and in different ways you can give this Gita to others. You can somehow participate in the festivals, glorifying the Lord. So there are many services one can do. So then, like that, if that also one cannot do, then Krishna says, at least then, if you have to do your duty, if you have to do your work, then do it for duty's sake. If you cannot do it for my sake, then only do it for duty's sake. So then, in that way, it begins the jnana direction, the jnana path. So then Krishna talks about what are the qualities that endear him to the devotees. What are these qualities? So he talked about various qualities like ahimsa, tolerance, peacefulness, simplicity. So some of these many qualities which he spoke in this verses 12:13 to 12:20. So the takeaway was the bhakti path is verily the best and the highest process and in terms of realization. And it is the recommended process, particularly in this Kali Yuga. Practical step-by-step guide given by Krishna on how to achieve him. And Krishna says how the devotees are very dear to him. So we have actually reached a milestone at this point, because if you notice 18 chapters, we have covered the first 6 and we have covered the second 6. So we have another 6 chapters left to go. So the acharyas describe this Bhagavad Gita is like a treasure chest. So, you know, when you have a treasure chest, there is the base, the box itself, you know, where you put the treasure in, that's the base. So that one is like the first 6 chapters. So the first 6 chapters creates the container where one can put all the treasure inside. So we heard about Arjuna, we had the setting of the scene. So, you know, the wood and the metal and all that was built. So Arjuna, Sankhya Yoga formed the basis. The basis was we have to know that we are the soul. Otherwise, there's no question of religious ideas already. There's no question of spirituality. If we think that this is just one life, then it's not really much of a point. We can do anything one pleases. So spirituality begins by understanding we are eternal soul and this body is temporary and this is not the last life. So then comes the question, what do I do in order to ensure my next life is better? So then Krishna goes on and talks about the various aspects. So then he says, go beyond this taking life birth after birth. End this. So then he sets the stage, karma, jnana, buddhi, then dhyana. So like that, all the different aspects of yoga. So it's kind of like also another way to look at it is like, it's like building a ship. You know, we are going to go for a voyage, a very exciting and life-transforming voyage. So in order to go for this voyage, one has to first of all have a map and have a compass. We need to know where is the destination and where is the goal. And we also need to have a boat built. So the first thing is understanding the destination and the goal. So the map and the compass needs to be there. So the first 6 chapters is like the map and the compass. It gives us the direction. It gives us the compass and the map so that we can navigate these waters. So that's another way of looking at it. And then the chest, if going back to the chest example, the next 6 chapters, the bhakti is actually the treasure which is contained within the chest. So that's the real ultimate prayojan, the goal. That is the real bliss of the entire knowledge, the purpose of all this knowledge. So that is like the building of the boat. So by following these bhakti processes, it gives us the boat by which we can cross this material ocean. So We have now the compass, we have now the map, and we have got the boat. And on top of that, we've got all our navigation systems within. We know where we need to go, right? So then the next step is to go on the voyage. So going on the voyage, we will see many different things. We will see many wonderful. We will actually see beyond our village. We will see the whole world. Not only the whole world, we will see the entire universe and the entire creation. So the next 6 chapters is like that. From 13 to 18, it tells us all the different information, all the different knowledge that we can understand in order for us to further relish and appreciate this jewel of this bhakti. So it expands our horizon further. So it's like, back to this chest example, it's like the cover of the chest. It completes, it covers it so that the entire chest is safely contained and kept. So again, in another way of looking at it, the first 6 chapters is like how by action or by karma, by performing action, we can come to the platform of bhakti. And then the chapters 7 to 12 talks about that bhakti. And then chapters 13 to 18 talks about how from jnana, or from knowledge, or from understanding about the entire material creation and all this, how we can come to eventually bhakti. So this is the way we can understand the entire layout of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's quite exciting also. Chapter 13 onwards, you will start to hear about many different aspects about how the world works, how the entire creation works, how we work. So in this way, we can ultimately understand also that the goal of all these things is the Supreme Lord, Krishna. And the goal is basically to attain bhakti. So today, the topic is nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So it's called Kshetra, Kshetranya, Vibhaga, Yoga. So don't worry about the Sanskrit. By the end of this chapter, we will know very well what is Kshetra and what is Kshetranya. So Vibhaga means to realize, to understand. So we are going to basically know about the nature of this creation and who is the enjoyer, and a few other things. A lot of topics we're going to cover in chapter 13. So let's get set and go on our voyage. The compass is there, the map is ready, the boat is built, and we are now sailing on the water and discovering all the different wonders, knowing well what is the goal. Okay, so going further, this is the first verse. Arjuna uvacha prakritim purusham chaiva kshetram kshetrajnan evacha etat veditum ichyami jnanam jneyam cha Keshava. Arjuna said, "O Keshava, I wish to know about." So then he begins with a question from Arjuna, right? He wants to go further into the details about creation. What is nature? Nature is called also Prakriti. Prakriti is also known as energy. It's also known as nature. Both it works, right? Basically, it's non-different. We will talk about how it is non-different later. He wants to know about the enjoyer, Purusha. Purusha means, literally, it means the enjoyer. And he wants to know about the field of activities, or the field. So this is called Kshetra, the place. So he wants to know what, basically, when we want to play a game, we want to know how the game is played, what are the rules of the game, what is the objective of the game, right? So all these things we want to learn. So in the same way, when we are going to do an activity, we want to know the nature of the activity, who is the enjoyer of the activity, what is the place where the activity is going to take place, and things like that. So, and then he also wants to know the knower of the field, one who knows fully the field of activities. So there are two personalities here, the enjoyer and the knower of the field. Okay, so this is called Kshetra Nya. So if you remember the topic, chapter 13, the title was Kshetra Kshetranya Vibhaga Yoga. So Kshetra means the field, and Kshetranya means one who knows the field. So these are all in very poetic language. What do they mean by this field and the knower of the field? Don't worry about that. We will explore this very nicely today. And the knowledge. So he wants to know what is actually consisting of knowledge. What is considered knowledge, and the rest is just plain ignorance. So what is real knowledge? Jnana. And then he talks about what is the object of that knowledge. Jnaya. So this is called Jnaya, the object of all knowledge, ultimately. So interesting topics. So let's see what Krishna replies. So here he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, Sariram, this body is also called Sariram. So I say Idam Sariram Kaunteya. So a Sanskrit term for body is Sharira. So this body is called the field. Now that gives us the perspective on how to understand the rest of the things. So if the body is considered the field of activity, right, Kshetra, then what do you think is going to be the enjoyer of this body? The one who's enjoying this field. So that is basically the Atma, ourselves. So we are the mini enjoyers, although at least we are trying to enjoy this body. So therefore we have inhabited this body and now we are trying to enjoy its facilities. So that is, so anyway, I'm going ahead of myself. So this body, Shariram, O Kaunteya, is called the field, Kshetra. And one who knows this body is called the knower of the field, Kshetra Jna. That means one who knows about this body and its nature and how it works and what's happening behind it. So this is someone who's known as a Kshetranya. So we can all become Kshetranya based on what scriptures tell us, right? So, O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower of all bodies. So here he says, I am the knower in all bodies, not just one body. And to understand this body and its knower is actually called knowledge. That is my opinion. So what does that mean? So I'm going to give some examples. So for example, a farmer will know his land, the tract of land. He will intimately know every tract of land that he owns, because he's farmer and he's directly, literally turun parang, how you would say in Malay. So he would know every tract of land in his farm. So similarly, we are the soul. We know about our body. For example, we can feel our finger, we can feel the tips of our toes, we can feel the tips of our ears, and every part, because the soul, though situated in the heart, the region of the heart, it expands itself like an aura and covers the entire body. So the consciousness spreads itself everywhere. So throughout the body, it is there. But we cannot know other bodies. We can only know our body because we are there, right? So, and one who knows this body is called the Kshetranya. So we as the soul are the Kshetranya within this body. So another example is like the apartment. So an apartment is there, different apartments are there, or places to live is there. And then, but the tenants may change. So the body may change. So like that, there are different species of body already existing in creation. But simply the soul transmigrates from one body to another, just like how we will go from one apartment to another apartment to another apartment. Now, we know the farmer knows his own farm, but he will not know his neighbor's farm, or he will not know other farms which is in the same land. So who will know the other farms which is existing? The landlord or the king. So the king will know all the other tracts of land, at least in theory, right? So therefore, we who know our own body, we are the Kshetranya within ourselves. But Krishna says, but I am also there. And I know not only you, your body, I know everybody's body. So I know what's happening in everywhere, everyone's consciousness. So therefore, he's like that. So therefore, the landlord will not only know his own apartment, he will know many other apartments. So this is one way we can understand Kshetra and Kshetranya, right? Kshetra, the other body, and Kshetranya means the one who knows the body. So, O Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. Mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu. And to understand this knowledge that we are not this body, we are separate from this body, and its knower is called knowledge. So this is actually called knowledge, not everything else. So that's why it's called the king of sciences, because anything other than this, it's not really going to get us anywhere in this creation. It is simply a matter of existing in this world. So real knowledge, as per what Krishna defines it, is to know the difference between matter and spirit. So we have already covered this in chapter 2, but from chapter 13 onwards, he will speak more and more details about these matters, and then eventually come to the platform of bhakti. So let's try to understand this body. So the body that we own, this is called, there are few types of body actually we should understand. So our body that we understand, the flesh, the bone, the marrow, the blood vessels, the organs, all this is called gross body. Why it's called gross? Because it is something which is tangible with our five senses. So it is, according to scripture, this gross body is made out of these five elements called panchabhutas. These panchabhutas are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So according to the various combinations of these panchabhutas, our body is made out of this. So in Ayurveda also, so based on this combination of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, like for example, fire and water, it combines and it forms what is called pitta. Pitta means bile, right? So, and then for example, earth and water will combine and form what is called as kapha. Kapha means it's like mucus. And then what else? Air and ether will combine to form what is called as vata. So like that, these five panchabhutas will combine in various ways, and it will have different combinations in all existing living entities. So even in human beings, those who have
Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhu, what is vata?
Vata means it's like it's like air. Sometimes we say we got air in our body. So it's not actually air, it's actually air plus ether combined. Okay. So in Ayurveda, if you understand Ayurveda, sometimes people will say, oh, and I've got lots of air, they say like that. So that's actually vata. So we don't want to go too detailed into the Ayurvedic aspects. What I'm trying to say here is that it's basically made up of these combinations and various combinations. So like, for example, people who are very high in pitta dosham, they will have a very thin skin, very fiery temperament, and they will be very hungry all the time and thirsty most of the time. So like that. So those who are in vata temperament, they will be very skinny, very nervy. They find it difficult to sleep sometimes. So like this. Okay, and those who are like in kapha, the kapha is more in their body. That means they will be like, they will put on weight more. Easy for them to put on weight. So and their bones will be strong and they have clear skin. So like that. So like that, they have various combinations. So this is basically the gross body. Okay. Now, there is something further beyond the gross body. So we know that there is a soul within the body, but there is another body within. So it's like the soul is covered by a layer, and then this layer is covered by the gross body. So the in-between layer is called the subtle body. Now in Sanskrit, the gross body is called the stula sarira, right? Or sometimes also referred to as the linga sarira. And then the subtle body is called the sukshma sarira. So sarira means body. So we have these two bodies. Now, what's the difference? The difference is when we die, it is the gross body that we leave. The soul is together with the subtle body will travel into another gross body. So That's how it works. Now, what consists of this subtle body? In the subtle body, we will have what is called the mind, the manas, the intelligence, the buddhi, and the false ego, the ahankara. So these three things make up what is called the subtle body. Now, it's called subtle because we cannot see these things. You cannot perceive them. Scientifically, you cannot perceive them, right? So you cannot touch them and feel them or whatever. So it's the mind. The mind is like the desire, the desires and what they like, what they don't like, the impressions they form in their mind. Intelligence is the deeper intelligence which can discriminate what is right and what is wrong. That is intelligence. Memory, so all that is there. And false ego is actually the soul who is covered in illusion. The soul covered in Maya, in illusion, he thinks that he is actually the body. He thinks that this is who I am. And he has forgotten the existence of the Supreme Lord. He has forgotten that he is actually the soul, which is eternal. So that's why they call it false ego, ahankara. And these three subtle layers, they are subtle, they cannot be seen, but they are not spiritual, they are material, because it is made up of material elements only. These five panchabhutas are gross material elements. These three, mind, intelligence, and false ego, they are subtle material elements, right? So we have to understand that both of these are matter. Only the soul is spirit, is separate. And the soul is neither gross, neither subtle. It is completely different. It is spirit. So this we have to understand. So sometimes, when people die, when they take up ghost bodies, so there are ghostly bodies also. So these ghostly bodies is actually people or the jiva who has taken on the subtle body only, but don't have gross body. So it's described that people, very sinful people, sometimes they take up ghost bodies, or people who commit suicide. So these people, because they voluntarily give up their gross body, so their punishment is to remain in a subtle body for some time. So their desire, and this is actually quite a painful thing. So because the desires are there, the feelings of the hankering is there, but they are extremely frustrated because they cannot engage with this gross body. Because in order to engage with this material world, they need the gross body. So they're not able to do this. So it's actually a suffering situation. So that is the idea, right? So if you can understand this point, now we can go on further. Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. So now Krishna is going to go more technical. So there's a bit of technical knowledge, but don't worry about it. I'll try to explain it in a simple manner. And then he says that knowledge of the field of activities. So we heard about the field of activity, which is kshetra, which is the body. And then we heard about the knower of the field, which is the kshetranya, that's the soul. And then we heard about also the knowledge. What is knowledge? What is jnana? Jnana means to know the difference between spirit and matter, right? So for example, based on this model, we can understand what is spirit and what is matter. And matter is divided into two, subtle and gross. So we can understand this aspect. So then Krishna goes, that knowledge, the jnana of the field of activities and of the knower of the activities, that means the body and the soul, that knowledge is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So a lot of details are given in other scriptures. So Bhagavad Gita will not go too much into detail. So we have covered a little bit of this in chapter 2. It was called Sankhya Yoga. So here Krishna is going to give a summary. So we will hear from 13.6 to 13.7. He talks about the field of activities. He goes in detail about this field. So as I mentioned, the body is made up of gross elements, earth, water, fire, and ether, in different various combinations. In different combinations, subtler and subtler and subtler, it will come, and we get these different bodies. For example, the fish body, the body of those creatures which are living in the sea, they have more water content, right? And less of fire content. So like that, there are some bacteria and some creatures which live in volcanic areas. So they are understood to have more fiery content and less watery content. So like that, we can understand various living beings. So this is the Vedic perspective. So then there is also something called the knowledge acquiring senses, the Pancha Indriyas. Now these 5 gross elements create the body, and from these 5 body, we have the 5 what we call Jnana Indriyas. Jnana Indriyas. Indriya means senses, right? So Jnana Indriyas means the senses which acquire knowledge, input device, right? How do we get our input? So this is basically our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. So this is considered the 5 Pancha Jnanendriyas. Pancha means 5. So this Pancha Jnanendriyas, once we get this input, right, it has to, there is, after being processed, after it goes into the mind and everything, right, there is something how we want to activate. We want to now respond. After we get the input, we want to respond to the stimuli. So how do we respond to the stimuli? So this method of responding, these are called the working senses. So in Vedic scriptures, it's also called the Indriyas, working senses. These are the Pancha Karma Indriyas or Karmendriyas. So working, karma means work, Indriya means senses. So what are they? They are the voice, legs, and hands, the evacuating, what we call organ, which is the anus, and the procreating organs, which are the genitals. So in this way, work is being executed by the body. So we have input, jnanendriyas, karmendriyas, by which work is being executed, by which the desire of the living entity is being attained. And then what are they trying to attain? Basically, there is a goal in this. What are they trying to attain? They are trying to satisfy their senses. So therefore, they have the sense objects. So this is called the Pancha Tanmatras. Tanmatras means the 5 sense objects. So we want to basically satisfy by enjoying the form, enjoying sound, enjoying smell, enjoying taste, and enjoying touch. So we get the input, we get the stimuli with the jnanendriyas, and we respond to the stimuli with the karmendriyas, and then we want to enjoy the objects, the tanmatras, with this. We want to enjoy the form, for example, with our eyes. We want to enjoy the sound with our ears. So in this way, we want to satisfy our desires by these 5 things. So this is all gross. And then there's also the, as I mentioned, the subtle body. So the subtle body, as I mentioned, is the mind, manas, intelligence, buddhi, and false ego, ahankara. So these are all the manifested. What is manifested? The manifested field of activity. This is all considered kshetra. All of this is called kshetra within the body. But there is also something called unmanifested. Unmanifested means when the creation is not there, when we are no longer manifested, when we are all when the entire creation is destroyed at the beginning of creation, within this material creation, it is said that all these subtle body, sense objects, working senses, everything is combined together to form one single element. So from that one single element, it's separated into five earth, water, fire, and air. And from there, it developed further into the eyes, ears, nose, and tongue and skin. And from there, it developed further into working senses and things like that. So what is this single element which all of this came from? So that one is called pradhan. So it all came from this single pradhan. So imagine it's like the all the material elements undifferentiated together. Now, for example, if you want to make a cake, so we will want to add flour, we will want to add water, we will want to add milk or butter or sugar. So these are all separate ingredients, right? So if it's all together, if it's all mixed up together like a batter, like a dough, and that is called like pradhan. So if you separate it, if you take it out, can we separate sugar from that dough? So the Lord can. So from that dough, he can take out sugar, he can take out butter, he can take out all these things. So then it becomes differentiated into all of these 5 different things. So it's a bit technical, but don't worry about it. Now I'm going to show you a different way for us to understand. So don't worry too much about the actual technical terms. So now, previously I have mentioned that Bhagavad Gita talks about 5 topics, right? So it talks about Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. It talks about the Jiva, right? And it talks about material nature, Prakriti. So this is what chapter 13 is discussing more in detail. It's talking about this Prakriti. This Prakriti or creation is material. And before you see all these planets, all the sun, all the different planetary systems, all the earth, water, fire, air. So how creation was created? In the beginning, it was all simply pradhan. So then this pradhan became agitated, and then it started to differentiate itself. The pradhan, the one single pradhan, started to become differentiated. When it becomes agitated by differentiation, then it became known as Mahatattva. So initially, pradhan is inert, and then it becomes agitated, then it's called Mahatattva. And once it becomes agitated, it starts to differentiate itself. It becomes earth, water, fire, air, and then like that, slowly, various differentiation, then it formed the entire creation. So once the entire creation is formed, fully set already, we are talking about material creation. This is material creation. So that is called Prakriti, once it's all created. So that's the difference. Pradhan is unmanifested, Prakriti is manifested. So Prakriti has all its differentiation, like how we talked about earlier, gross body, subtle body, and things like that. So both are energy of the Supreme Lord. Prakriti is energy of the Lord. The Jivas are also energy of the Lord. The difference is Prakriti is considered material energy, whereas it's basically a shadow of the spiritual energy of the Lord. And one of the spiritual energies of the Lord is the Jiva. Okay, so we can understand. And this Jiva is spirit. So I've drawn this color here to differentiate. Now, when this Jiva, he wants to enjoy separately from the Lord, he enters into Prakriti. He is sent into Prakriti. It's said that the Supreme Lord impregnates these Jivas into the womb of Prakriti. So in that way, they come into Prakriti. So then what happens? Prakriti is also called the Kshetra, the field of activity. So the Jiva is the Kshetranya, and he wants to enjoy the field of activity. But Prakriti is very large. He cannot understand possibly everything about Prakriti because we are small, minute Jivas. So we only know about our own body, right? But the Lord, he is also Kshetranyan. He knows both the Prakriti fully, and he knows all our bodies as well. Okay, so therefore, we are also called Kshetranya. The Lord is also called Kshetranya. But he is the major Kshetranya. He knows everything, all the Kshetras. Okay, so understanding these aspects, understanding spirit, matter, understanding the field of activities and who is the enjoyer and all this is called jnana, knowledge. Okay, and Krishna goes on to say, so one who knows the goal of knowledge. What is the goal of knowledge? The goal of knowledge is ultimately to understand the spiritual being, the ultimate being, the Supreme Lord, who is the owner of both these energies. So to understand this ultimate person, so he is called Jnaya. Jnaya means the goal of knowledge, the object of knowledge. And God is that object of knowledge. Ultimately, it all has to lead towards that, right? So scientists are always searching for God, but they are searching for God within the material realm. So like that, they are finding, the more they discover, the more they find, oh, there's so much more to discover. When they first discovered the atom, it was a very simple model. And then they went deeper. Then there was Rutherford's model, and then there was the plum pudding model, and then like that, different model. Now there's the wave model. It becomes more and more and more complex as they go deeper and deeper and deeper. So they're trying to understand God, but God is unlimited. So they will never understand the end of it unless they come to the spiritual aspect. So then there are questions. These are the questions and answers covered in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetranya, Jnana, and Jnaya. So now we should be familiar with these words, right? So Purusha is the enjoyer. Who is the enjoyer here? So we want to be, actually our position, our Swadharma is not the enjoyer. Our Swadharma, our position is to be the servant of the Supreme Lord. But when we want to enjoy independently, so therefore we also try to become Purusha in this material world. That's what we are trying to do. We are trying to enjoy this material world, and therefore we are also called Purusha. But the ultimate Purusha, Purushottama, Purusha Uttama is the Supreme Lord, right? So we know Prakriti, we know Purusha, we know Kshetra, Kshetranya, Jnana, and the object of knowledge, Jnaya. So then Krishna will talk a little bit more about Kshetra. So we heard about that already, the nature of the body, gross body, subtle body, earth, water, fire, air, ether, the karma indriyas, jnana indriyas, the tanmatras, and all that we have already heard. So now Krishna talks about Jnaya, the ultimate goal. So you see, this is basically more for the jnanis or those who are curious, or for the scientists. They want to know more and more about material world, and in this way ultimately come to the conclusion that the Supreme Lord is the ultimate. So now Krishna talks about Jnaya, 13:13 to 13:18, all about the goal of knowledge. So we start with this verse. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal, Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So now Krishna talks about the goal. The goal, as I mentioned before, there are three ways we can understand the supreme goal, or three ways we can understand God, right? There is, first of all, the Brahman realization, which is attained by the jnanis, right? And then the second level is the Paramatma realization, and the final level is the Bhagavan realization. So now Krishna is talking the first level, Brahman. So by analyzing all the difference between matter and spirit, in this way, when one continuously differentiates matter, spirit, and trying to find out, eventually they'll come to the understanding about Brahman, that everything eventually is part of that Brahman, right? And Krishna is telling here that Brahman is beginningless. Remember, I mentioned the Sat potency, or the eternal potency. God is understood by three potencies: Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss. So Brahman is the Sat potency, beginningless, is eternal. And Krishna is saying here that this Brahman is subordinate to me. It is not the ultimate, it is under me. It is actually my effulgence, my jyoti. And it lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. That means it's beyond matter. We cannot understand Brahman simply from understanding matter. It has to cross that. So that is basically here. And then he goes on to text 16. The Supreme, now he describes the Paramatma, the second level of God realization. That supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings. So outside and inside. So remember, I mentioned Paramatma exists in every atom, and as well as the space between atoms, and as well as within our heart, within all living entities. So he is subtle. It's not subtle, means it's not something which we can perceive. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. So this is the ultimate statement. So the scientists can never understand Paramatma. They can understand that there is some kind of energy. So, now they understand antimatter and things like that. So they know there is energy going on. The fission, nuclear fusion. So there is a lot of energy within the atom. So this is part of that. But they cannot understand the source of that energy. They do not know what is actually causing that source. So he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, I'm not sure what this word is. He is near to all, right? Although far, far away, he is always near to all. Okay. So therefore, the Supreme Lord is in the spiritual world, but at the same time, he expands himself as Paramatma in every atom and also within our heart. So he's very near to all. So it's a very nice verse, this one. 17. Although the supersoul appears to be divided among all beings, so as I mentioned, the Paramatma is in every living entity, in every atom. Although he appears divided, he is yet never divided. So how to understand this? So therefore, this is what Krishna has earlier mentioned. You cannot understand me completely. So he said, this is Achintya Shakti. This is God. This is my inconceivable potency. You cannot understand with your material intelligence. You have to come to the Brahman level, then we can begin to understand certain things. So he is divided, but yet never divided. So this is called Achintya Shakti. He is situated as one. Now, how is this situated as one ultimately? So now Krishna is talking about Bhagavan. So ultimately, this differentiated Paramatma expansion all has its direct source from that one personality. And he is that Supreme Lord, Bhagavan realization. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he also devours and develops all. So he's also at the same time the creator, the annihilator, and the maintainer. So this is the understanding, ultimate. It may not be the primary creator, but he is the ultimate creator and the ultimate annihilator and the maintainer as well. So then he goes on. He may do it through his agents, right? So that in that way, he may not be the direct person. Like, for example, to create the material world within the universe, he empowers Brahma to do it, right? So, and therefore, in the same way, to destroy, Lord Shiva destroys at the end of this material creation. But that is just one universe. So then the entire summary of all the universes ultimately emanates from Mahavishnu, who is lying on the Garbhodakashaya ocean, or the ocean of causes. So don't worry about that. So here you can see some pictures in the background. Let me see. You know, the background here, you can see the different universes, how Lara, you can't see it here. Okay, never mind. I'll put the picture later. Okay, so then we move on to the next verse. Iti Shetram Tatha Jnanam Nyayam Choktam Samashataha Mad Bhakta Etad Vijnaya Mad Bhava Yog Papadyate. Thus, the field of activities, the body, right? The knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So what does he mean by that? Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly. Because he will a greater description of all these things you will find in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is called Vaishnavanam Priyam. It is a very dear scripture for the Vaishnavas. It's 18,000 verses and made up of 12 books, 12 cantos, which is basically about 20 books. Prabhupada has our Acharya Srila Prabhupada, he has translated this entire Srimad Bhagavatam together with purport and explanation and descriptions. So over there, you will find lots more knowledge about this Prakriti, Kshetra, Purusha, and Kshetranyan. Very, very interesting. So therefore, he says, my devotees who read this Srimad Bhagavatam, basically that's what he's saying, can fully understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So that is one way of approaching through the jnana, by understanding these differentiations. So then he continues, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidhi Anadi Ubhavati Vikarams Chagunams Chaiva Vidhi Prakriti Shambhavan. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. They are transformations, and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So I mentioned already previously, both Prakriti and the Jivas are energy of the Lord. And as such, they are eternal. So they are beginningless, right? So both material nature, Prakriti, and the living entities, Jivas, should be understood to be beginningless. But the Jiva, there's a difference. The Jiva is spirit, whereas Prakriti is material. So what's the difference? If you remember chapter 2, the Jiva never changes. He's immutable. He's never changing. Whereas Prakriti is always changing. It's keep transforming. It never remains the same. So they are transformations, and the modes of matter are products of material nature only, not due to the Jiva's transformation. The transformation, the apparent transformation that we see, it is simply due to the nature of this matter. Just like the body, from birth, it becomes a baby, and then a young child, and then a grown-up person, and then an old person. It looks like we are changing. And then at death, we change into a different body, but the soul remains the same. So it is simply due to a product of material nature. Okay, so then again, we try to understand a bit deeper. So I mentioned that Bhagavad Gita talks about 5 topics, right? Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, and the other is Kala. Kala is the time. We won't talk about Kala much here. But in order for the Jiva to go through the various transformations, because when we talk about transformation, that means there has to be time. So that's the reason in the spiritual world, there is no transformation. Everything is eternal, and therefore there is no time in the spiritual world. Time is a factor within the material creation only. So Kala means time. So now there's the field, and then there is time. So the Jiva wanting to enjoy the Prakriti and under the purview of time undergoes transformations. So there's a verse here, 21. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes. So material causes. So whatever that's happening, the material transformation, it is all due to material nature, right? So the material nature takes a personification. She is known as Durga. Durga is also, Shakti. So this is basically the purview of Prakriti, material energy. The material energy is called Durga Devi. She's taking that personification. Whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So here there is an answer, right? Sometimes people ask, right? We have also had this question. Why is so much of suffering and misery is going on in this world? So here Krishna is telling, the sufferings and enjoyment in this world is due to the living entities only. So it is not even due to Prakriti. Prakriti is simply giving the field. But because of the interactions of the various jivas, all the jivas are here in the field, and they are interacting in different ways. So each of these interactions are causing reactions. And these reactions are coming back as either suffering or enjoyment. And this is felt by the jiva which is in this world. So that's what's happening. So as a result, the jiva working under Prakriti, under the purview of time, he creates activities, karma. So his various activities which he is doing in this Prakriti, right, that is creating different reactions. Some are good, some are bad. And these good and bad reactions are hitting himself, and it's also hitting other people, other jivas who are within this. Just like in a pond of water, if we take a stone and we throw the stone into the pond, it will create ripples, right? You cannot say that it will just create ripple in one local area. Depends on our activity. Like if we throw a small stone, there will be ripples within the small area. But if you throw a very large stone, there will be ripples all over. And if a huge meteorite comes and strikes the lake, or the pond, then the entire ripple is like a tsunami. The whole area becomes completely deluged with water. So the quality of our action will affect the reactions that we get. So those who are nearby us, the purview is felt by other people. If we create one action, like for example, we are in a family. If we do something shameful, then the family will also feel the shame. If we do something wonderful, then the family will also experience the honor, right? So sometimes the jiva's actions will be more far reaching. It will be affecting the entire country, or it may affect the entire nation, or it may affect the entire world even. So like that. So it depends on the size of the stone which we throw, or the activity, the nature of the activity which we are doing. So as a result, we go through life and death, birth and death in various activities. So this verse, right after that, this verse comes, 13:22. So whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyment in this world, and therefore the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. What are the three modes? Mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. In this way, according to his activities, he is enjoying these three modes. This is due to his association. Why is this happening? It is simply due to his association with that material nature. What is that material nature? Prakriti. So the jiva associating with Prakriti is taking different modes, mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. And in this way, very important verse point here, that thus he meets with good and evil among various species in his life. So this is what's happening. So you can see here, this has nothing to do with God. Our good and evil that we go through in our life, the happiness and distress that we go through in our life, actually doesn't really have anything to do with God. God is not the one doing this. He is in the spiritual realm, and he is witnessing all our activities from our heart, and he has a strict, what do you call, a policy of non-interference. His policy of non-interference is he doesn't want to interfere in the activity or the desire of the living entities, because he doesn't want to force. The moment he interferes, that means he forces our will. And when that happens, that means we don't have free will. So then we become slaves, right? So that's not the idea. So the Lord doesn't do that. He gives us our free will. And then he puts the law to ensure that there is no chaos. Therefore, he puts the laws of God. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt love thy neighbor. So like that, in Christianity, there are the 10 commandments, right? So in this way, the laws of God are set down, right? Ahimsa. One should not harm another living entity. One should follow the four regulative principles: satyam, truthfulness, tapasyam, austerity, sacrifice. One should carry out. And then one should do saucham, maintain cleanliness of mind, body, and words. And one should maintain also satyam, saucham, tapa, daya, mercy. One should not cause harm to others. So in this way, like that, from here, there are many rules which the Lord has set, so that there's no chaos. So there is ultimate justice. So everybody gets due justice according to their activities by the law of karma. So this is the understanding, and we will explore this understanding of karma in detail in level 2. So here Bhagavad Gita briefly describes this. Okay. So 13:23. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer, as the proprietor, overseer, and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. So he's talking about Paramatma. So by his mercy, we get this body. By his mercy, we get to interact with the three modes and all that. And he is also witnessing, and at the same time, he is also giving it to us what is due to us according to our desires. So you can see here this picture, how the Supreme Lord as Paramatma exists in every living entity. So I'd like to tell you a short story, all right? So this is the story of Kanakadas. So we are talking about Paramatma, about understanding the nature of Paramatma. So once, this is in Udupi. Udupi is a place, holy place in India, and this is the seat of the Brahma Madhava Sampradaya. So over there, in previous ages, this happened during the 15th century, the 16th century. So at that time, there was a person called Kanakadas. Now this Kanakadas had a guru, and this guru also had many other disciples. Now Kanakadas was a simple man. He was not a Brahmana by birth. He was simply a shepherd. So he used to take care of his goats. So at the same time, he was also very gifted in poetry, and he had a very sweet voice also. He was a very beautiful, he could sing very well, and he is a famous poet actually. There are many songs written by Kanakadas. So sometimes in those days, the guru, the caste system was rather prevalent. So some of the disciples of this guru, they were from the Brahmana family, and they were like rather derogatory towards Kanakadas. So they were not treating him too well. So this guru noticed this happening one day. So, and then he wanted to teach them all a lesson. So he understood that Kanakadas was actually a very good devotee. He was a very devout person, much better than the other Brahmins. So to show the glory of this Kanakadas, he told his disciple, he called all of them, okay, all of you come. My disciples come, and Kanakadas also came. And then he told them, okay, look, after he spoke to him about Paramatma and all this aspect of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. And after that, he told them, now I'm going to give all of you a banana. So before that, he made them all fast. They didn't eat anything. So they fasted throughout the morning, and it was lunchtime, and their stomachs were growling. And then he told them, okay, I'm going to give each of you a banana, and you can do whatever you like with this banana. You can eat the banana, but there is a condition. You can only eat the banana if you can go to a place where nobody is able to witness you eating the banana. If you can do that, then you can eat the banana. So then, like that, they left, and then the Brahmanas left, and then the Kanakadas also left with the banana. And then later they called them back, and then the Brahmana disciples said that, oh, I have eaten my banana. I finally found a place. I searched many places, and I found a place where nobody was able to witness, and I ate my banana. So, but Kanakada still had his banana. And then the guru asked, what about you, Kanakadas? Aren't you hungry? You are also fasting. So why aren't you eating your banana? Then Kanakadas said, because I could not find anywhere where there was no one who is able to, I mean, everywhere I could find somebody to witness it. So therefore I couldn't. Then the gurus asked him, can you explain further? Then yes, he said, everywhere I went, there was either the sun to witness, or the moon to witness, or the stars to witness. Everywhere I went, there was the earth to witness, or fire to witness, or air to witness, or water to witness. Everywhere I went, there was also the 10 directions, north, south, east, west, and up and down. All these were there to witness also. And at the same time, there is also Paramatma in every living entity, and also in every atom. So therefore, I couldn't find anywhere which is free from Paramatma's sight. So therefore, when they heard this, the Brahmanas understood, okay, this is far out. So I can understand. So the guru then after that chastised the Brahmana disciples and told them, see, your Kanakadas is actually much better than all of you. But it's not the only thing. There's also another part. Kanakadas was such a great devotee that it seems in that place, there was this Gopal deity, the deity of Gopal, and he is worshipped in that temple. And before, the Brahmanas, they would not allow Kanakadas to come into the main temple. They were rather envious of him, and they found excuses to say, no, you smell of your sheep, so you don't enter. So they didn't allow him, but they allowed him to go to the back of take darshan from a small hole they drilled a small hole at the back of the wall of the deity's sanctum. And then they said, from there, you see his back enough. So like that, he will always come and then he will see from the back. But one day, this Gopal deity, he actually turned himself. He wanted to see Kanakadas so much. He was more interested in giving darshan to Kanakadas than to these Brahmin disciples, that he turned himself and he faced the hole at the back. So, and then when the Brahmanas came and they saw the deity was turned, he was permanently turned. It was fixed to the stone. So they were like amazed. And then they could understand the greatness of Kanakadas. So he went on to become a great devotee, and he wrote many bhajans for the pleasure of Gopal. So like that, we have covered these topics, questions and answers by Arjuna. What is Kshetra, Jnanam, Niyam, Prakriti, and Purusha, right? So then the verse continues. Krishna now is going to talk about Kshetranya, the ultimate goal. Kshetranya means the one who is the knower of the place, the knower of the body. So that is ultimately not us. We are also the knowers, but the ultimate knower of all bodies is the super soul. So Krishna says, some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. So you can see here, Krishna is talking about the jnana path. So this is the verse, right? Some perceive the soul through meditation, dhyana yoga, or through cultivation of knowledge, the jnana, or through working without fruitive desires, the karma yoga. So he's talking about this path. But Krishna is saying the next verse right after that, Anye tu evam ajanantaha shrutanyebhya upashate te api chati taranti eva mrityum shruti parayanaha. Again, there are those who, although not very conversant in spiritual knowledge, they begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, that means due to faith, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So now Krishna is talking about the bhakti path. So one does not need so much of knowledge. We don't have to understand this jnana, kshetra, kshetra and all these things. So Krishna is telling, all you actually need is faith. If you can develop your faith by hearing more and more about my glories and all these topics, you can develop that faith strongly simply by hearing. So Shravanam, right? You remember Bhakti starts with the Shravanam process, which is the hearing process. They also transcend the path of birth and death, Arjuna. Krishna is telling. So we would like to end with one story. It's 8:50. So very quickly, I'll try to tell this story. So this is basically to tell the difference between the jnanis, or those who are very much attached to rituals, and those who are very much attached to understanding detailed knowledge or meditation and all that. And there's a difference between the bhakta. So this story appears in one of the Puranas. It's the story of the cobbler and the Brahmana. So once, this is in previous ages, once Narada Muni, he came and he gave his darshan to one cobbler. So there's the simple cobbler, and he was sitting under a banyan tree, and Narada Muni gave his darshan to him. And the cobbler was very happy to see Narada Muni. He paid his obeisances to him, and he worshipped Narada Muni. And then he with tears in his eyes, he inquired from Narada Muni, how can I serve you? So Narada Muni, he said, I would like to, because you're such a nice bhakta, I would like to give a message that you may have to Vishnu when I go and see him. So then the cobbler said, okay, actually I just want to know when can I come back to his lotus feet. So the cobbler wants to know that, because the cobbler was actually a bhakta. He was practicing bhakti yoga under the guidance of his guru, and then he was always worshipping the Supreme Lord. So Narada said, okay, I will do that. And then he also visited another person. this is a Brahmana, a very strict Brahmana, a caste conscious Brahmana. But he was also very learned. He understood many scriptures. He understood a lot of things about the details of Kshetra, Kshetranyan, and all these aspects. So then Narada went to him, and this Brahmana understood that this is Narada and accepted him and then worshipped him as well duly. And then he asked Narada, okay, how can I serve you? Then Narada said, I'm going to see the Supreme Lord, Narayana. So now you please tell me, what message would you like me to pass to him? So the Brahmana also asked the same point. Please tell me, when can I come to your lotus feet? I have done so many wonderful things in this life. Please let me know, when will the day come when I will come to your lotus feet? So this Brahmana was very confident. He was thinking, definitely at the end of this life, I'm going to reach the Lord. So he wasn't thinking about which lifetime. He was thinking about which day. When is the day going to come within this life? So then Narada Muni went to see. He went to Shvetadvip, the ocean of milk. And then he met the Supreme Lord, Shirodakashai Vishnu. And Shiro is called Shirodakashai Vishnu because he's lying on the ocean of milk. Right? He's also called Narayana, and Lakshmi is also there. So then he worships the Lord, and the Lord also receives him. And Narada asks, I have come to pass some message to you from two of your devotees. And then Lord Narayana, he smiles. Of course, he knows everything. Then he says, yes, I know what you're going to say, Narada. So please tell them these messages which I'm going to give you. Please tell the cobbler that he will return back to me within the end of this life. And then Narada was surprised. Oh, but he's just a simple cobbler. He doesn't understand. He was thinking. So, but he smiled. He also knows there's a reason behind why Narayana said this. And then Narayana said to the Brahmana, you tell him that he will return after only 100 lifetimes. Then Narada was surprised. And then Narada asked, can you explain why this is so? And then Narayana said, you will understand when you go and meet them again, and when you tell them the answer which I just gave you. By their reaction, you will understand. And you will understand further when you pass this message from me to them. So then Narayana tells Narada, you please tell them, they will ask me, they will ask you, what was I doing when you met me? So to that answer, please tell them that I am, basically what he tells them, I am threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. So you tell them this. So Narada was smiling and Vishnu was also smiling. So then basically he wanted Narada to tell both of them that when Krishna, when Arjun, when Narayana, what he's doing in his pastime, he's taking a huge elephant and threading it through the eye of a needle, right? This is the needle, the eye of a needle. So he goes back to the cobbler. First he goes to the Brahmana. And then the Brahmana asks, yes, Narada, you're back. Please tell me the good news. And then the Narada said, the message is, you are going to definitely you're going to return back to the Supreme Lord, but only after 100 lifetimes. Then Brahmana became very upset. 100 lifetimes? No, I think you are mistaken, Narada. You must have heard wrongly. Then Narada, no, there's no mistake. Then Brahmana said, what do you know, Narada? He became so disturbed and everything. In his mind, he was thinking, there must be some mistake. In his mind, he was already offending Narada. And then he asked after that, okay, never mind. But when you met him, right, can you tell me what he was doing? And then Narada said, oh yes, he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. When the Brahmana heard this, due to his offense in his mind, and due to him already being disappointed, he just completely lost his faith of Narada. He said, no, you are not, I don't think you must be the real Narada, or you might not even have seen the Supreme Lord. I think you are just pulling my leg. And then he just laughed, and then he just went away after all. And then in his mind, he was very offensive already. And then after hearing this, Narada could understand. Okay, the Supreme Lord was right. Then he went to the cobbler. And when he asked the same, when the cobbler, he told the cobbler, you will return within this one lifetime. No, before he mentioned that, the cobbler himself asked, oh, you went to see Narayana, Please tell me what he was doing. And then Narada said, don't you want to know your answer first to the question that you asked? I am not so interested in that. I only want to know what the Supreme Lord is doing. So you remember the Lord, the devotees always want to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. Nama, Rupa, Guna, and Leela. They want to hear about their pastimes. So then Narada said, okay, he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. When the cobbler heard this, he became ecstatic. He was laughing and smiling and dancing. So wonderful, so wonderful. Like that he was saying, Jai Lord Narayana, Jai Narayana. And then Narada was surprised. Oh, you have so much of faith. You can understand this. Can you tell me why you can so easily accept this point? And then the cobbler said, why not, Narada? Why not? If the Supreme Lord, you see this banyan tree which I'm sitting under, this is the banyan tree. It's basically one of the largest trees in the world. The width is extremely huge. It can form an entire forest. This one tree can form an entire forest. You can see how it drops like this. So he says, this huge banyan tree, if the Lord can pack this huge banyan tree inside the seed of a small seed. The banyan seed is so small. I can hold it in my hand. And this entire huge tree is within that small seed. If he can do this, then what is so wonderful about him putting an elephant through the eye of a needle? Certainly he can pack the elephant into the eye of a needle. This is my Achintya. This is the Lord's Achintya Shakti. He can do the impossible. So like that, when he said this, Narada, he could understand, oh yes, his faith is very, very strong. Then he also told this cobbler, don't worry, cobbler. Definitely the Supreme Lord said you will come back to him in this lifetime. And then when he heard that, he immediately fell down and offered his prostrated obeisances to Narada. So from this we can understand that the faith is very, very important. And it's not so much knowledge that one purchases Krishna. It is by bhakti that one can purchase Krishna. Humility and bhakti. So the takeaway for today, Prakriti, material energy, right? Purusha, the enjoyer. Kshetra, the place where we enjoy. Basically our body or this material world. Kshetrajnan, one who knows this material world or one who knows this body. So as far as the body is concerned, we are Kshetrajnan. But to understand this material world and to understand all other bodies, the ultimate Kshetrajnan is the Supreme Lord. And then we heard about Jnana. Jnana means the knowledge, to know the difference between matter and spirit. And we heard about Jnaya. Jnaya means the goal of knowledge, ultimately to transcend this material world and to understand Bhagavan, Paramatma, and the ultimate Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. And how from the stories, we talked about Kanakadas and the stories about cobbler and the Brahmana, we heard hearing with faith, Shabda. Shabda means hearing with faith from scripture or from the devotees can deliver us in the path of bhakti, ultimately. So with that, we'd like to end with this verse. This Jaya Vyacham Vachakam Iti Udeti. I'll just say the translation. This is basically more on the glories of the holy name. O holy name, you are manifested in two forms. You are manifested as the supreme person in the Rupa form described by the holy name. And you are also manifested as the sound vibration of the holy name. So this is the difference between our name and the Lord's name. So you see, when we are thirsty, for example, we may say water, 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 water. We can chant water 108 times. We can chant water 16 rounds for 2 hours, but we will never become satisfied by thirst. We will in fact become more thirsty. Why? Because in the material name, water, the name water and its quality is separate. When we say water, we don't experience the water. We only say the word water. But the difference between the name of the Lord, the Lord's name is spiritual. So therefore, when we say Krishna, 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 we say the name, but at the same time, the Lord's quality is also within the name. Not only his quality, he himself is in the name. He has actually said he incarnates within the name. So therefore, there is non-difference between his name, his quality, his lila, and his form. They are all non-different. They are all the same. So this is a very deep understanding about the holy name. So with this, with faith, if we can chant this holy name with faith, with this understanding, we can very quickly attain the goal of bhakti. So this is the translation of that. So therefore, he says, you have come as the sound vibration, and you are also the nama, rupa, guna, and lila of the Supreme Lord in that name. So we know that the second form is even more merciful than the first form. So the name is more merciful than the rupa, the form, because although a person may commit many offenses to you in the rupa form, in the deity form, he will still plunge into an ocean of bliss simply by serving your second form, which is your name. So the idea is, like in deity worship, in when we are worshipping the rupa, the form of the Lord, there are many rules to follow. So one may sometimes, if they are ignorant, they may cause offense. So therefore, that's something which we have to be careful about until we come to a level where we can do this. That's why usually it's done in the temples. So where the rules are very strictly followed. So, but in the chanting of the holy name, there are no rules. Very simple. One doesn't have to be clean even. One can chant at any time, at any place, at any situation, in any way, and one will still derive the benefits. The level that one derives the benefits, that may change. That differs. That is according to one's faith and one's dedication, but there is no offense. So one will get all the benefits simply by chanting the holy name. So with that, we'll end here. Let's say this together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you very much, everybody, for patiently hearing. Sometimes I speak too much. So anyway, so I'll just go through the order here. You can see here. I've sent this WhatsApp. So if anybody wants to make a quick order, they can just tell me. I put this here like this. So it's easy for you to you just need to choose what you like and then put it in the bank account and send me the slip. So then I can follow up for you. And then remember this quiz. I will send the quiz link after this. So now we open up for questions.
Very interesting.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. So I'll take the question first. Janavi Mata. Yes.
Prabhu, can I a bit confused about these terms, Prakriti and Kshetra. Isn't that same?
Okay. Kshetra here refers to the field of activity. That can mean the body, yes. It can also mean the material creation. So in that sense, it's called Kshetra, yes. But Prakriti, Kshetra is part of Prakriti. So in that sense, you're right. Kshetra is part of Prakriti. But Prakriti basically also means energy of the Supreme Lord. So it's specifically used to refer to the material energy of the Supreme Lord. So you could say that Prakriti is the Kshetra. You're right. But when there's a differentiation here, we are talking about the material energy of the Supreme Lord. So in that way, we refer to as Prakriti. And she also takes the form. She takes the form of of Durga Devi. So she is like the superintendent of this material energy. the Shakti of this material world. So if the Lord of the material world is Lord Shiva, the Shakti of the material world is Durga. So that is the nature of Prakriti. Okay, Mataji?
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
So I'm looking at one question. It appears in the chat by Revati Mataji. The first story you narrated, could you advise the temple? You mean the name of the temple? It's in Udupi. I will find out the name of the temple. It's basically the Math. It's the main temple of the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. Udupi Math. I can send it to you in the WhatsApp later. Any other questions from anyone?
Hi, Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhu, the temple that you showed earlier was where Krishna Paramatma, he turns his body, right?
Yes.
Okay, that temple is in Udupi, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I went to the temple in 2019 December.
Oh,
It
you
was
went
very
there?
beautiful temple.
Ah.
Yeah, I went there.
So that place,
very beautiful, very nice.
Okay. The locals, if you tell them Kanaka Kindi, that's the language they use. So it's Kannada language. So you tell them Kanaka Kindi, that means they will understand, oh, you're talking about the peephole for Kanaka Das. So then they will show you that place.
Yes, yes, very beautiful place, a beautiful temple.
Yes.
Another thing I want to, this is regarding the today's chapter 13. It's actually the toughest topic, I would say, to me.
Yes, it's technical.
Yeah, a little bit difficult to understand because I'm trying to digest. But will you be repeating?
I think we will, because we will not talk specifically about Kshetranyan and all that. What you could do, you could look through the videos again. You can go through second time, and then that may help you. But like Prakriti, definitely we will talk about Prakriti. So it's basically it's a technical way of approaching spirit from matter. That means from understanding material creation, the nature. But at least the important thing you should understand is the nature of the body. For example, we have the gross body, we have the subtle body, right? So if you can understand that point, that is more important. And to know the details about the way the senses work and all that, that is not really so necessary. That is just something extra.
Okay. Understood.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thank you, Mataji. Any other questions from anybody else?
No, Prabhu. Just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. So there were some people who were asking about they wanted to do some, give some donation or to take part in the Shastra Dan or anything like that. So I'm trying to compile some information from the temple. So I want to compile it nicely and then I can send it to you all. So then you will know what you'd like to do. So it's nothing, I mean, you don't have to do it. I'm just sending it to everyone because there were some people who are asking about this. So I'll send it later, maybe another 1 or 2 days once I get the data. Okay, so thank you very much. So if there's nothing else,
thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
So I'll see you all tomorrow.
Yes.